Imagine standing in the shadow of a massive stone structure, carved with symbols no one can fully decipher, built by hands we know almost nothing about. All around the world, ancient civilizations have left behind puzzles so perplexing, even modern scientists and historians are left scratching their heads. These aren't just old ruins or forgotten artifacts, they're riddles etched in stone, hidden beneath the earth, or whispered in myths passed down for thousands of years. And the craziest part, despite all our technology, all our knowledge, some of these mysteries remain completely unsolved. Today, we're diving into 30 of the most baffling enigmas from the ancient world, stories that defy explanation, monuments that shouldn't exist, and legends that might just hold a kernel of truth. From the eerie precision of Egypt's pyramids to the unsettlingly advanced Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old device often called the world's first computer, these aren't just footnotes in history. Their glaring question marks that challenge everything we think we know about the past. Who built these things? How did they achieve such impossible feats? And why do some of these mysteries feel like they were left behind intentionally, as if daring us to solve them? This isn't just a list, it's a journey. A chance to step into the shoes of explorers uncovering lost cities, scientists staring down at artifacts that shouldn't exist, and historians piecing together clues that don't quite fit. Some of these mysteries might send chills down your spine. Others will make you wonder if ancient people knew secrets we've since forgotten. And by the end, you'll see why these puzzles aren't just relics of the past, they're invitations to keep searching, to keep questioning, because the ancient world still has stories to tell. So, ready to unravel the impossible, let's begin. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as one of humanity's most iconic monuments, a towering testament to the ingenuity of the ancient world. Yet, even after centuries of study, this colossal structure still guards secrets within its limestone walls. In 2017, a team of scientists made a startling discovery: hidden voids deep inside the pyramid, detected using advanced scanning technology. These mysterious chambers, one nearly 100 feet long, sit directly above the Grand Gallery, untouched for over 4,000 years. What could lie inside these unexplored spaces? Some researchers speculate they might be undiscovered burial chambers, perhaps holding the remains of a forgotten pharaoh or sacred artifacts meant to accompany them into the afterlife. Others suggest these voids could have served a structural purpose, relieving pressure or redirecting weight in ways we don't yet understand. Then there are the more radical theories. Could they conceal remnants of lost technology, something so advanced it defies our understanding of ancient engineering? The frustrating part, we can't just drill through the pyramid to find out. Modern archaeology prioritizes preservation over intrusion, meaning these chambers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Robotic probes and non-invasive scans offer glimpses, but the full truth remains locked away, teasing us with possibilities. What if these voids hold the key to understanding how the pyramids were really built? Or what if they're simply empty, a clever architectural trick by the ancient builders to keep future generations guessing? Until we find a way to peer inside without damaging history, the Great Pyramid's hidden chambers will remain one of archaeology's most tantalizing unsolved mysteries. Buried beneath the waves off the coast of a tiny Greek island, a corroded lump of bronze and wood sat unnoticed for nearly 2,000 years until divers stumbled upon it in 1901. What they'd found wasn't just another shipwreck artifact. It was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so shockingly advanced for its time that historians initially refused to believe it could be real. Often called the world's first computer, this intricate bronze gadget, no bigger than a shoebox, contained a maze of interlocking gears designed to predict celestial events with jaw-dropping accuracy. Turn the crank and tiny dials would display the positions of the sun, moon, and planets, even forecasting eclipses years in advance. The precision of its engineering rivals clocks made in the 1800s, yet it dates back to around 100 BC, centuries before similar technology appeared elsewhere. Who could have created something this sophisticated in an era when most of Europe was still living in simple agricultural societies? Theories abound. Some argue it was the work of legendary Greek inventor Archimedes, though the mechanism postdates his death. Others link it to the island of Rhodes, a hub of ancient astronomy and engineering. But here's what really keeps scholars up at night. This wasn't just a one-off experiment. The level of craftsmanship suggests an entire tradition of advanced machinery that's since been lost to history. Imagine what else might have existed: devices so advanced they seemed like magic, now lying in fragments at the bottom of the sea or buried in undiscovered ruins. Modern scans reveal inscriptions hidden under layers of corrosion, essentially a user manual etched in ancient Greek. Yet even these clues raise more questions. The mechanism references Egyptian calendar systems alongside Babylonian astronomical data, hinting at a global network of knowledge far more interconnected than we ever imagined. Was this device a luxury toy for wealthy elites, a navigational tool for sailors, or something even more profound? What's most haunting is the realization that this artifact survived purely by chance. Had the ship carrying it not sunk, had it not been preserved in just the right conditions, we might never have known such technology existed in antiquity. It forces us to wonder how many other revolutionary inventions from the ancient world have vanished without a trace. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't just a relic. It's a ghost, a whisper from a past far more capable than we've ever given it credit for. In a quiet corner of Yale University's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library lies an object so confounding that it's been called the most mysterious book in the world. The Voynich Manuscript, named after the rare book dealer who brought it to public attention in 1912, is a 200-page puzzle bound in faded vellum. Its pages are filled with looping, alien handwriting, a script unlike any known language, accompanied by surreal drawings of plants that don't exist, naked women bathing in strange green pools, and astrological diagrams that defy interpretation. For over a century, cryptographers, linguists, and even wartime codebreakers have tried to crack its secrets. All have failed. What makes this manuscript so maddening is its tantalizing hint of order. The text follows patterns reminiscent of real language word repetitions, sentence structures, yet resists every attempt at translation. Some believe it's an elaborate hoax, but modern analysis suggests the ink and parchment date back to the early 1500s. Carbon dating can't explain why someone would go to such lengths to create a meaningless book centuries before modern forgeries became commonplace. Theories about its origins range from the plausible to the fantastical. Could it be a lost herbal manual documenting plants now extinct or imagined? The botanical illustrations show impossible hybrids, leaves twisting in ways no real plant ever could. Others argue it's an encrypted scientific text, perhaps by Renaissance polymaths like Roger Bacon, hiding revolutionary knowledge from the church. More fringe speculations tie it to alchemy, extraterrestrial communication, or even a Chinese letter traveler's guidebook. Perhaps most haunting is the realization that its author never intended for it to be understood. The manuscript's very existence feels like a deliberate act of obfuscation, a message whispered just beyond the edge of comprehension. Every decade, new hope emerges. A team claims a breakthrough. A computer algorithm identifies a possible cipher, only for the manuscript to slip back into silence. It mocks our assumptions about history, language, and the limits of human knowledge, and so it sits in its climate-controlled case, a 400-year-old enigma waiting. Not for better technology or smarter minds, but perhaps for us to ask the right question, one its creator never imagined would need answering. Stretching across the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines remain one of the most visually stunning and perplexing creations of the ancient world. From the ground, these enormous geoglyphs look like little more than shallow grooves in the earth, but from above, whether by plane or satellite, their true scale and complexity become breathtakingly clear. Enormous geometric shapes, sweeping spirals, and colossal depictions of animals, plants, and even humanoid figures stretch for miles. Some of these lines run perfectly straight across the desert floor, uninterrupted for distances longer than the Empire State Building is tall. Others form intricate designs so large they can only be fully appreciated from hundreds of feet in the air. How did the Nazca people, thriving between 200 BC and 600 CE, manage to etch such precise, massive designs into the landscape without the ability to fly? Archaeologists believe they used simple tools and surveying techniques, possibly stretching ropes between stakes to maintain straight lines. Yet the sheer scale and accuracy of these figures, many remaining perfectly preserved for over 2,000 years, still baffle modern researchers. The desert's stable climate, with minimal wind and rain, helped protect the lines, but their longevity also speaks to the Nazca's deep understanding of their environment. But why go to such extraordinary lengths? Some scholars argue the lines served an astronomical purpose, aligning with solstices or celestial events to create a kind of massive calendar etched into the earth. Others propose they were sacred pathways walked during rituals to honor deities or ancestors. There's even a controversial theory suggesting the Nazca may have used primitive hot air balloons to oversee their work, though no evidence of such technology has ever been found. Then there are the shapes themselves: a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider with one leg curling unnaturally, a mysterious humanoid figure nicknamed the astronaut. Were these symbols tied to the Nazca's mythology? Some researchers point to the region's water scarcity, suggesting the lines may have been part of rituals to summon rain or appease spirits controlling the elements. Perhaps the most unsettling question isn't how or why they were made, but who they were meant for. If the Nazca couldn't fully see their own creations from the ground, were these messages intended for something or someone else? The lines endure, silent and enigmatic, as if daring us to unravel their purpose. And with new geoglyphs still being discovered thanks to modern imaging technology, one thing is certain: the desert hasn't given up all its secrets yet. 2,400 years ago, the Greek philosopher Plato told a story that would ignite imaginations for millennia, a tale of an advanced island nation swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. The Lost City of Atlantis, described in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, wasn't just another myth to Plato. He presented it as a cautionary fable about pride and divine punishment, attributing the account to Egyptian priests who claimed it was a real civilization destroyed 9,000 years before his time. According to Plato, Atlantis was a marvel of engineering, with concentric rings of water and land, towering temples sheathed in precious metals, and a powerful naval fleet that waged war against ancient Athens before the gods struck it down in a cataclysmic earthquake. But here's where things get intriguing. Plato's descriptions are oddly specific for a fictional parable. He pins Atlantis's location to the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, placing it somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. Yet despite centuries of searching, no definitive trace has ever been found. Could Atlantis have been real, or was it purely allegorical? Scholars are divided. Some argue Plato invented it wholesale to illustrate his philosophical ideas about hubris and ideal societies. Others point to his meticulous details, like the island's dimensions and the layout of its capital, as hints that he was recording a distorted but genuine historical memory. The search for Atlantis has taken explorers to wildly different corners of the globe. One leading theory suggests the volcanic eruption that obliterated the Minoan civilization on Santorini around 1600 BC inspired the tale. The disaster's sheer-scale tsunamis, ash clouds blotting out the sun, matches Plato's account of sudden destruction. But Santorini sits in the Mediterranean, not the Atlantic, and the timelines don't align with Plato's 9,000-year-old claim. Then there's the Bahamas hypothesis, fueled by the discovery of underwater rock formations near Bimini that some claim resemble paved roads or walls. Skeptics counter that these are natural beach rock formations, not man-made ruins. More fringe theories stretch from Antarctica to the Sahara, each bending Plato's clues to fit their narrative. But the lack of physical evidence raises a haunting possibility. If Atlantis did exist, its remnants might lie buried under millennia of sediment or lost to the shifting tectonics of the ocean floor. Modern technology like sonar mapping and satellite archaeology has identified intriguing anomalies, submerged structures off the coast of Spain, strange geometric patterns near the Azores, yet none have yielded conclusive proof. Perhaps the most compelling argument against Atlantis's existence is the absence of cultural echoes. How could a civilization so advanced leave no trace in the myths, trade goods, or DNA of neighboring peoples? But then again, our understanding of ancient history is constantly evolving. Only a century ago, the city of Troy was considered mere legend until archaeologists unearthed its ruins. Atlantis endures not just as a mystery, but as a mirror. It reflects our longing to uncover forgotten chapters of human achievement and the unsettling thought that even the greatest societies can vanish without a trace. Deep in the jungles of Costa Rica, scattered across riverbeds and hidden beneath dense foliage, lie hundreds of perfectly spherical stone balls, some no larger than a grapefruit, others weighing over 16 tons. Discovered in the 1930s by workers clearing land for banana plantations, these enigmatic artifacts, known as the stone spheres of Costa Rica, have puzzled archaeologists for decades. Carved with astonishing precision from hard volcanic rock like gabbro and granodiorite, their surfaces are so smooth and geometrically flawless that modern engineers struggle to explain how ancient craftsmen achieved such perfection without metal tools or advanced measuring devices. The most baffling aspect isn't just their shape, it's their purpose. Found near burial sites, plazas, and even arranged in mysterious alignments, the spheres seem to have held deep significance for the Diquis culture, which thrived between 700 and 1500 CE. Some researchers believe they served as territorial markers or symbols of power, their size and placement reflecting social hierarchy. Others propose they were astronomical tools, arranged to track solstices or celestial events. A few spheres have been found grouped in patterns resembling constellations, though no definitive evidence links them to star maps. Then there's the question of craftsmanship. How did the Diquis carve these orbs with such symmetry? The prevailing theory suggests they hammered the stones with other rocks, then polished them for generations using sand and water, a process that could take decades for a single sphere. But this raises another mystery. Why devote such staggering effort to objects with no obvious utilitarian function? The answer might lie in the spiritual world. Indigenous oral traditions hint that the spheres were believed to hold cosmic energy or were gifts from gods who descended from the sky. Modern technology has only deepened the intrigue. Laser scans reveal that many spheres are within millimeters of perfect roundness, a level of precision that rivals modern machined parts. Some even align with magnetic north, suggesting an understanding of Earth's geomagnetic fields far ahead of their time. Yet despite their sophistication, the spheres were nearly lost to history. Many were looted or destroyed before protections were enacted, and today only a handful remain in their original locations. What lingers most is the eerie sense of intentionality behind their placement. Clusters of spheres found on remote hilltops or near ancient waterways suggest they weren't just decorative. They were meant to be seen, perhaps as waypoints for rituals or markers of sacred spaces. With no written records left by the Diquis, their true meaning may never be fully unraveled. The stones stand silent, their smooth surfaces refusing to yield secrets, as if guarding a message meant only for those who carved them. In the basement of Iraq's National Museum sits an unassuming clay jar roughly the size of a man's fist. yet this humble artifact might just rewrite our understanding of ancient technology. Known as the Baghdad Battery, this 2,000-year-old relic consists of a terracotta vessel, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod, all sealed with an asphalt plug. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice, experiments show it could generate a small electric current. The implications are staggering. Did ancient Mesopotamians harness electricity centuries before its official discovery in the 1800s? The most compelling theory suggests these devices were used for electroplating, coating objects in thin layers of gold or silver. Artisans could have suspended a metal item in the solution, connected it to the battery, and let the current bond precious metals to its surface. This would explain the intricate gilding found on artifacts from the Parthian era, which lacked tool marks consistent with traditional hammering techniques. Imagine a workshop where rows of these jars hummed with unseen energy, transforming ordinary trinkets into shimmering treasures, yet skepticism lingers. No wires or connectors have been found alongside the jars, and some archaeologists argue they're simply storage containers for sacred scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as inert seals. Others point out that if these were truly batteries, we'd expect to find more evidence of their use: charred remains from accidental shocks or depictions in art. The lone surviving example raises more questions than answers. Why hasn't a single contemporary text or mural ever referenced such a revolutionary technology? The mystery deepens when you consider parallels. Similar ancient galvanic cells have been proposed in Egypt, where gilded artifacts also defy traditional explanations. Could there have been a forgotten thread of electrical knowledge, passed between civilizations and then lost? Modern recreations prove the Baghdad Battery works in theory, but without a smoking gun like an intact electroplated object found beside one, we're left with a tantalizing what if. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe these jars were multipurpose tools, occasionally repurposed for experiments with static electricity or even medical treatments. Ancient texts describe using electric fish to numb pain. Whatever their function, the Baghdad Battery stands as a quiet rebellion against our assumptions. It whispers that the past might have been far more electrifying than we ever imagined. High in the Andes, overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman stands as a jaw-dropping monument to precision engineering. Its massive zigzagging walls, built from limestone boulders weighing up to 300 tons, fit together so seamlessly that even after 500 years of earthquakes, not a single sheet of paper can slide between the stones. The tightness of these joints isn't just impressive, it defies logic. How did a civilization without the wheel, without iron tools, achieve such perfection? The most striking feature isn't just the size of these stones, but their shapes. Each block is a unique polygon with as many as 12 perfectly angled sides, locking into neighboring stones like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. Modern architects struggle to replicate this technique, even with laser measurements and diamond-tipped tools. Some corners curve inward slightly, as if accounting for future seismic shifts, a level of foresight that suggests the builders understood geology on a profound level. Traditional explanations credit Inca stonemasons with extraordinary patience, slowly grinding stones together using sand, water, and trial and error. But the scale complicates this theory. Moving these megaliths would require thousands of workers hauling them uphill on rollers, yet no records describe such an effort. Even more puzzling are the stone's surfaces. Some show strange vitrification, as if briefly melted by extreme heat. Could an unknown technology have been at work? Alternative theories range from the plausible to the outlandish. Some researchers point to ancient acoustics, suggesting sound waves were used to soften stone, a technique hinted at in local legends. Others propose the walls predate the Incas entirely, built by a forgotten civilization with knowledge we've since lost. The Incas themselves claimed the stones were softened by herbs, though no such plant has ever been identified. What's undeniable is the intentionality behind every angle. These aren't just stacked rocks, they're a masterclass in anti-seismic design, surviving tremors that toppled Spanish colonial buildings right beside them. Whether crafted by human hands or aided by forgotten science, Sacsayhuaman's walls remain a silent challenge to our assumptions about ancient engineering. They don't just stand the test of time, they mock it. In a dimly lit corner of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, a fragment of parchment no larger than a dinner napkin sits under glass, yet this fragile artifact has ignited one of the most heated debates in cartographic history. Drawn in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, the map depicts coastlines with eerie accuracy, including a detail that should have been impossible: the outline of Antarctica without its ice cap. What makes this so baffling? Antarctica's landmass has been buried under miles of ice for at least 15 million years. Modern sonar mapping only revealed its true shape in the 1950s, yet Reis's map seems to show Queen Maud Land's contours with startling precision. Even stranger, the Admiral's notes claim he compiled it from older sources, including charts dating back to Alexander the Great's era. Could this be a surviving trace of an ancient seafaring civilization advanced enough to survey a continent humanity wouldn't officially discover until 1820? Skeptics counter that the map's anomalies might be coincidental distortions. The southern landmass could represent a speculative Terra Australis, a mythical continent medieval cartographers often included. Others argue Reis simply misaligned chunks of South America. The map's skewed orientation makes Brazil's coast vaguely resemble Antarctica's eastern edge. But defenders point to chilling details. The map's inclusion of subglacial mountain ranges unknown until modern times, and rivers matching current geological surveys of pre-ice Antarctica. The plot thickens with Reis's own notes. He references a mysterious source map used by Christopher Columbus, allegedly copied from a looted Alexandrian library text. If true, could this knowledge trace back to the ancient Greeks or even earlier? Some theories stretch further, suggesting the original cartographers were survivors of a lost Ice Age civilization like Atlantis, preserving doomed knowledge in scattered fragments. Mainstream scholars remain unconvinced. Carbon dating confirms the parchment is 16th century, but without Reis's original sources, there's no way to verify their age. The map's omissions are equally telling: no inland rivers or accurate mountain placements, just a rough coastal outline. Yet the haunting possibility lingers. What if this fragile parchment is a palimpsest overwriting a far older understanding of our world? A single sheet of vellum silently screaming that history's timeline might be missing pages. Whether relic or riddled with errors, the Piri Reis map forces us to confront how little we truly know about humanity's forgotten chapters. It's not just ink on parchment, it's a ghost of lost knowledge, daring us to question how ancient our ancestors really were. Hidden beneath the quiet farmland of Zhejiang province in China lies one of archaeology's most staggering enigmas, the Longyu Caves. Discovered purely by chance in 1992 when a curious villager drained a local pond, these aren't just simple tunnels. They're a sprawling underground labyrinth of 24 massive caverns, each carved with such precision that the walls, ceilings, and supporting pillars look like they were machined by modern tools. The scale is almost incomprehensible. Some chambers stretch over 10,000 square feet, with ceilings soaring nearly 100 feet high. To put that in perspective, each cave could easily fit an entire basketball court, and they were all dug by hand over 2,000 years ago without any written record of their existence. What's immediately striking is the craftsmanship. The walls are covered in uniform chisel marks running in parallel lines at a perfect 60-degree angle, a pattern seen nowhere else in ancient Chinese architecture. Even more baffling is the absence of debris. Where did the estimated 900,000 cubic feet of excavated stone go? no rubble piles or quarries have ever been found nearby. And how did the builders maintain such perfect symmetry and structural integrity without advanced surveying tools? Modern engineers have calculated that removing this much rock would require 1,000 workers laboring non-stop for 6 years, yet not a single historical text, folktale, or even local legend mentions their construction. Theories about their purpose range from practical to downright mystical. Some scholars suggest they were imperial storage vaults, though their remote location makes this unlikely. Others propose they served as secret military bunkers, yet no weapons or artifacts have been discovered inside. The most tantalizing clue lies in the cave's acoustics. Certain chambers amplify sound in ways that suggest ritual or ceremonial use. When you clap your hands near the walls, the echo produces a haunting, musical tone, almost like the caves were tuned to specific frequencies. Could they have been ancient concert halls or spaces for meditation and sound-based healing? Then there's the question of who built them. The caves predate the Qin dynasty, placing their origin in a historical black hole where records are scarce. Local folklore whispers of immortals who hollowed out the mountains in a single night, while more speculative theories point to lost technologies or even extraterrestrial influence. But the most unsettling possibility is that these caves weren't meant to be found at all. Their entrances were deliberately hidden beneath water, as if their creators wanted to erase all traces of their work. Today, the caves stand as mute witnesses to a forgotten chapter of human ingenuity. With no inscriptions, no artifacts, and no clear purpose, they defy every convention of archaeology. Were they a sacred space, an industrial project, or something we haven't even considered? Until someone uncovers a single shred of definitive evidence, the Longyu Caves will remain a ghostly echo of a mystery we're not meant to solve. In the arid deserts of China's Xinjiang region, archaeologists made a discovery that shattered conventional narratives of ancient history. Perfectly preserved mummies with striking European features, buried thousands of miles from where they belonged. Known as the Tarim mummies, these bodies date back as far as 1800 BC, their lifelike preservation a result of the dry, salty soil. But it's not just their condition that stunned researchers, it's their appearance. Flowing blonde or red hair, high cheekbones, tall statures, and woven woolen clothing resembling Celtic or Norse designs. These individuals looked as if they'd stepped out of Bronze Age Europe, yet they were found in the heart of Asia, surrounded by artifacts that placed them firmly in ancient Chinese civilization. Genetic testing confirmed the impossible. These mummies carried DNA linking them to populations from the Black Sea region far to the west. How did they end up here? One leading theory suggests they were part of an early migration along the Proto-Silk Road, a network of trade routes that wouldn't fully form for another 1,000 years. Their burial goods, wheels, intricate textiles, and even remnants of cheese hint at a pastoral lifestyle, possibly from a lost branch of the Yamnaya culture, known for spreading Indo-European languages across Eurasia. But why venture so far east? Some scholars argue they were traders chasing new opportunities, while others propose they fled climate shifts or conflicts in their homeland. The most haunting mummy of all is the Beauty of Lulan, a woman buried around 1800 BC with delicate eyelashes still intact, her high-necked woolen dress dyed deep red. Beside her lay a basket of wheat grains, evidence of agriculture far earlier than expected in this region. Even more perplexing are the tattoos adorning some mummies, swirling patterns identical to those found on contemporaneous nomads in Siberia and Eastern Europe. These aren't random similarities, they're cultural fingerprints suggesting a vast, interconnected world long before history books claim such connections existed. Yet the Tarim mummies raise uncomfortable questions. If Europeans lived in ancient Xinjiang, why does no Chinese text mention them? Were they assimilated, wiped out, or simply forgotten? Their tombs show no signs of violence, and some were buried alongside locals, indicating peaceful coexistence. Then there's the linguistic puzzle. Tocharian, an extinct Indo-European language once spoken in this very region, shares roots with Celtic and Germanic tongues. Could these mummies be the missing link? Modern politics have further clouded the mystery. Chinese authorities, wary of fueling separatist sentiments in Xinjiang, initially downplayed the mummies' significance. Only in recent decades have international researchers been granted access, and even now their findings remain controversial. The Tarim mummies don't just challenge our understanding of ancient migration. They force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that history is far messier and far more interconnected than neatly drawn borders suggest. They're a reminder that civilizations have always been in motion, and that identity, racial, cultural, or otherwise, is a story written in sand, constantly shifting with the winds of time. High on a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey, a series of massive stone pillars rise from the earth, not the work of a medieval civilization or even an ancient Bronze Age culture, but something far older. Göbekli Tepe, dating back an astonishing 12,000 years, predates Stonehenge by 6 millennia and the Great Pyramids by 7. This isn't just an archaeological site, it's a time capsule from the dawn of human civilization, and it's rewriting everything we thought we knew about how societies evolved. What makes Göbekli Tepe so revolutionary? Its sheer sophistication. The complex consists of multiple circular enclosures, each anchored by towering limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons, many carved with intricate reliefs of animals, snarling lions, coiled snakes, and swooping cranes. The craftsmanship is staggering, especially when you realize this was built by hunter-gatherers, people who supposedly hadn't yet invented agriculture, let alone the wheel or metal tools. According to traditional timelines, humans shouldn't have been capable of such monumental architecture for another 5,000 years. Here's the puzzle: why would nomadic people, constantly on the move for food, invest so much effort into a permanent structure? One radical theory suggests it wasn't agriculture that led to civilization, but the other way around. The builders of Göbekli Tepe may have gathered here for rituals, creating a need to sustain large groups, thus kickstarting farming to feed them. Evidence supports this. Genetic studies show the first domesticated wheat appeared just 60 miles away around the same time. Then there's the mystery of its burial. Around 8000 BCE, someone deliberately filled in the entire site with thousands of tons of soil, preserving it like a time capsule. Was this an act of reverence, or were later peoples trying to erase knowledge of a forgotten past? The site's alignment with celestial events adds another layer. Certain pillars seem to track the movements of stars like Sirius, hinting at advanced astronomical knowledge millennia before the Babylonians mapped the heavens. Most haunting of all is what we haven't found. No residential areas, no graves, just these eerie, animal-covered pillars standing sentinel in the dirt. If this was a temple, where were its worshippers? If it was a gathering place, why leave no traces of daily life? Göbekli Tepe doesn't just challenge our timeline of progress. It taunts us with the possibility that civilization's true origins are still out there, buried beneath the dust of millennia, waiting to shake history once again. On a remote speck of land in the Pacific, over 900 stone giants stand silent vigil, some towering 30 feet tall, weighing as much as 80 tons. The moai of Easter Island, carved from compressed volcanic ash, aren't just statues, they're a colossal riddle. How did a society with no metal tools, no wheels, and no large animals manage to quarry, transport, and erect these monoliths across miles of rugged terrain? And why, after centuries of relentless construction, did their civilization suddenly crumble? The most baffling challenge is logistics. The moai were carved at Rororoku, a volcanic quarry where half-finished figures still lie embedded in rock. From there, they were moved up to 11 miles to ceremonial platforms called ahu. Oral tradition speaks of the statues walking to their destinations guided by divine power. For years, scholars dismissed this as myth until experiments proved it might hold a kernel of truth. Researchers showed that teams rocking the statues side to side on ropes could walk them forward in a staggering, shuffling motion. Just 18 people working in unison could move a 10-ton moai several hundred yards per day. But what about the heaviest ones? Another theory suggests sleds or log rollers, though the island's deforestation makes this puzzling. Where did all the trees go? Purpose adds another layer of intrigue. The moai weren't solitary sentinels. They faced inland, watching over villages with hollow eyes once inset with coral pupils. Most scholars agree they represented deified ancestors, their backs to the sea to symbolically protect the living. But recent discoveries reveal they're more than heads. Many have full torsos buried underground, covered in intricate petroglyphs. Some even had red stone hats called pukao, each weighing up to 12 tons, hauled to the tops of already erected statues. The effort was astronomical, hinting at a society obsessed with legacy and spiritual power. Then there's the collapse. By the time Europeans arrived in 1722, the island was a shadow of itself. No standing moai, just toppled figures and a population decimated. For decades, the dominant theory blamed ecocide, claiming the islanders recklessly deforested their homeland to move statues, triggering famine and war. But newer evidence complicates this story. Pollen studies show the deforestation was gradual, aligned with climate shifts. Rat bones suggest invasive rodents devoured palm seeds, preventing regrowth. And some moai were deliberately knocked face down, not by conflict, but possibly during rituals or to release their spiritual power. The truth may lie in resilience, not ruin. Oral histories describe a deliberate pivot after centuries of statue building. The islanders shifted focus to the birdman cult, a competition where swimmers raced to retrieve eggs from offshore islets. Perhaps the moai's downfall wasn't a catastrophe, but a choice. A society adapting, redirecting its energy from stone giants to new traditions. Easter Island's lesson isn't just about collapse, it's about transformation. The moai still stand, not as warnings of hubris, but as silent witnesses to the audacity of human imagination. They remind us that even in isolation, even with limited resources, people will always reach for the extraordinary, and then, when the time comes, find a way to let go. Deep in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a series of enigmatic carvings adorn the walls, strange, bulb-like objects with serpentine filaments inside, connected by cables to what appears to be a power source. To the untrained eye, they look uncannily like modern electric light bulbs. Known as the Dendera lights, these reliefs have sparked one of the most heated debates in Egyptology. Are they merely symbolic depictions of ancient mythology, or could they be evidence of forgotten technology far ahead of its time? Egyptologists explain the carvings as representations of the Djed pillar, a symbol of stability, entwined with a lotus flower and a snake, an emblem of the god Harsomptis emerging from a primordial womb. In this context, the bulb becomes a stylized womb, the snake a divine manifestation, and the entire scene a spiritual allegory for creation and renewal. Similar motifs appear across Egyptian art, often linked to the cult of Osiris and the cycle of rebirth. The cables trailing from the objects are interpreted as ritual ropes or stylized lotus stems, common in temple iconography. Case closed, not quite. The alternative theory hinges on unsettling details. The objects bear a striking resemblance to Crookes tubes, early experimental light bulbs from the 19th century. The filament inside the bulb mirrors the dual spirals of a glowing wire, while the cable connects to a box held by a figure. Some say this could represent a primitive battery akin to the Baghdad battery. Proponents point to the absence of soot in certain temple chambers, asking how intricate carvings could have been made in pitch-black underground rooms without a portable light source. Could the Egyptians have harnessed electricity or at least stumbled upon its principles? Skeptics counter with practicality. If this technology existed, why hasn't a single artifact of an actual bulb or generator been found? Where are the written records, the workshop remains, or the broader cultural references? Ancient Egyptians documented everything from medical treatments to grain taxes. Why would such a revolutionary discovery go unmentioned? And yet, the precision of the carvings gnaws at the imagination. The bulbs even feature what look like insulating brackets and support beams, details that feel too mechanical for pure symbolism. Perhaps the truth lies in the middle. The reliefs might encode a deeper understanding of natural phenomena, bioelectricity observed in eels, static sparks from amber, or even the glow of certain phosphorescent minerals. The temple's priests, keepers of sacred knowledge, could have ritualized these observations into religious iconography, blending science and spirituality in ways we're only beginning to decipher. The Dendra carvings don't just challenge our assumptions about ancient technology, they force us to confront how easily modern eyes can misinterpret the past. Whether divine metaphor or lost innovation, their mystery lingers like an unlit filament, waiting for the right current of understanding to bring them back to light. Scattered across the rugged highlands of northern Laos, the Plain of Jars presents a haunting spectacle: thousands of ancient stone vessels, some as tall as a person, others wide enough to hold a full-grown adult, lying in clusters across the landscape like discarded tools of giants. These megalithic jars, carved from sandstone and granite, range from modest containers to massive 9-foot-tall behemoths weighing several tons. Dating back over 2,000 years to the Iron Age, their purpose remains one of Southeast Asia's most enduring archaeological puzzles. Who crafted these jars, and why did they go to such extraordinary lengths to place them here, often atop remote hills or buried deep in the jungle? The most widely accepted theory links the jars to ancient burial practices. Excavations have revealed human remains, burial goods, and ceramic fragments inside and around many of them, suggesting they functioned as funerary urns or receptacles for ritual offerings. Some researchers propose the jars were used in secondary burials, where bones were placed inside after bodies had decomposed elsewhere. But this explanation only deepens the mystery. Why use such enormous, labor-intensive containers for this purpose? The sheer scale of the operation is staggering. Over 90 known jar sites dot the region, with the largest containing nearly 400 individual jars. Transporting these heavy stone vessels, some quarried from mountains miles away, would have required an organized society with sophisticated engineering knowledge. Yet no evidence of such a civilization has been found nearby. Then there's the enigma of the jars' distribution. They're not randomly placed but arranged in deliberate patterns, often aligned with geological features or celestial events. At Site 1, the most studied location, jars cluster along a ridge overlooking a valley, as if positioned to watch over the land. Some feature carvings of human figures or circles, while others are surrounded by mysterious stone discs, possibly lids, though few have ever been found intact. The absence of a written record from the jar makers adds another layer of intrigue. Who were these people? Local folklore speaks of a race of giants who used the jars to brew rice wine for celebratory feasts, while more Sama legends suggest they held rainwater for thirsty travelers or even stored the bodies of fallen warriors. Modern archaeology has only deepened the mystery. Soil analysis reveals some jars were buried up to their necks, as if anchoring them to the earth. Metal artifacts found nearby, bronze bracelets, iron tools, hint at trade connections with distant cultures, but no settlements large enough to support such a monumental project have been discovered. Even more puzzling are the jar sites hidden in dense forests, far from any known ancient trade routes. Were these sacred spaces, or did they mark territorial boundaries? The Plain of Jars also bears scars from modern history. During the Vietnam War, American bombers targeted the region, leaving countless unexploded ordnances that still render parts of the landscape inaccessible. This tragic legacy has ironically preserved some jar sites from looting, but has also hampered research. Only in recent years, with painstaking clearance efforts, have archaeologists begun to piece together clues. What emerges is a picture of a culture both pragmatic and profoundly spiritual. The jar's alignment with mountain passes suggests they may have served as waypoints for ancestral journeys, guiding spirits through the landscape. Their placement near water sources hints at rituals linking death and renewal. Yet without texts, without even a name for the people who made them, the jars remain silent witnesses to a vanished world. They stand as monuments not just to the dead, but to the human impulse to leave a mark, to ask across millennia, "Remember us?" And in their stillness they whisper back a question of their own, "Will you?" Stretching across the windswept coast of Brittany in northwestern France, the Karnak stones form one of the most mesmerizing megalithic landscapes on Earth. Over 3,000 massive standing stones, some towering nearly 20 feet tall, march across the countryside in eerily precise rows, some running straight for nearly half a mile. Unlike the clustered circles of Stonehenge, these monoliths are arranged in parallel lines, like an ancient army frozen in time. Dating back to around 4,500 BC, they predate Egypt's pyramids by centuries, yet their purpose remains one of Europe's greatest prehistoric mysteries. Were they sacred pathways, celestial calendars, or something far more enigmatic? The sheer scale of the site defies comprehension. The main alignments, Mainek, Kermario, and Kerleskan, contain nearly 2,800 stones between them, each weighing multiple tons. Local legend claims they're a Roman legion turned to stone by the wizard Merlin, but archaeology tells a different story. These stones were hauled into place by Neolithic farmers, a society without metal tools or written language, yet capable of organizing a project that would challenge modern engineers. The precision of their placement is staggering. Many stones align with solstice sunrises or key lunar events, suggesting the builders had an advanced understanding of astronomy. At Mainek, for example, the rows point directly toward the sunrise during the winter solstice, as if marking a sacred moment in the annual cycle. But here's where things get even more intriguing. Some researchers argue the stones aren't just aligned with celestial events, they might have been used to predict them. Certain gaps between stones correspond to the moon's 18.6-year cycle, a phenomenon only rediscovered by modern astronomers in the 17th century. Could these stones have functioned as a prehistoric observatory, allowing ancient priests to track eclipses or seasonal changes critical for agriculture? Others propose a more spiritual purpose. The nearby tumuli and dolmens, burial mounds, and stone tombs hint that the alignments might have been ceremonial pathways, guiding the dead toward the afterlife. Yet not every theory is rooted in ritual. A controversial hypothesis suggests the stones served a practical function: earthquake detection. Brittany sits atop a network of fault lines, and some geologists note that the megaliths cluster near fissures in the bedrock. The stone's arrangement might have amplified subtle tremors, acting as an early warning system for seismic activity. It's a tantalizing idea, but without written records, it's impossible to confirm. Then there's the puzzle of the Karnak curse. For centuries, locals believed disturbing the stones brought misfortune. When a 19th century mayor ordered stones removed to build a house, his workers refused. Legend says he died mysteriously soon after. Modern archaeologists haven't fared much better. Early excavations in the 1930s were plagued by equipment failures and unexplained accidents, fueling speculation that the stones guard their secrets fiercely. Today, the site remains eerily silent. Unlike other megalithic wonders, Karnak lacks carvings or artifacts to decode its builders' intentions. The stones stand mute, their uniformity almost mocking our attempts to understand them. Were they temples, tools, or tombstones? Perhaps the answer lies in their very simplicity. Unlike the ornate tombs of Egypt or the towering pyramids of Mesoamerica, Karnak's power comes from its raw, elemental presence, a reminder that even without grand adornments, the past can still speak volumes. The stones don't need intricate symbols to awe us. Their endurance alone is their message. Some mysteries are meant to stand forever. Among the fragile parchment scrolls discovered in the caves near Qumran, one stands apart, not for its religious texts or ancient prophecies, but for what it seems to promise: unimaginable wealth. Known as the Copper Scroll, this 2,000-year-old artifact isn't made of delicate animal skin like the other Dead Sea Scrolls. Instead, it's sheets of oxidized copper, etched with Hebrew and Greek letters so deep they had to be hammered into the metal with meticulous care. And the message they contain reads like something out of an adventure novel. A detailed inventory of 64 locations where staggering quantities of gold, silver, and sacred temple objects are supposedly hidden. We're talking 26 tons of silver, nearly 5 tons of gold, and priceless artifacts like incense altars and priestly robes, a treasure haul worth billions today. But here's what makes the Copper Scroll so divisive among scholars. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, which are literary or religious, this one feels like a straightforward treasure map. It lists landmarks, cisterns, ruins, even specific graves, with precise directions like under the large black stone in the northern niche, or in the tunnel leading east from the spring. The clinical, almost bureaucratic tone suggests it wasn't meant as allegory. Someone went to extraordinary lengths to record these locations permanently, choosing durable metal over perishable parchment. Yet despite multiple expeditions to follow its clues, not a single scrap of this treasure has ever been found. Theories about its origins split into two camps. Some argue the scroll documents real temple treasures hidden during the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE, possibly by zealots or priests desperate to protect their sacred objects from looters. The amounts listed align roughly with historical accounts of the Second Temple's wealth. Others dismiss it as folklore, a symbolic wish list of items lost during the temple's destruction, never meant to be taken literally. The scroll's language is oddly repetitive, with treasures listed in weights that sometimes defy logic, like 17 talents, appearing multiple times. Could it be a ritual text encoding spiritual blessings as treasure to be uncovered through study rather than shovels, the biggest obstacle to solving the mystery? Geography. Many landmarks mentioned Solomon's Canal, the Valley of Achor, no longer exist or have names that shifted over millennia. One expedition dug beneath a Jerusalem monastery based on the scroll's directions, only to hit bedrock. Another team used ground-penetrating radar near the Dead Sea, finding nothing but empty cavities. Even if the treasures were real, 2,000 years of earthquakes, floods, and urban development have likely erased or buried the clues beyond recognition. Then there's the eerie possibility that the treasure was found long ago, just not by us. The scroll's final entry ominously states that a duplicate document exists, listing even more hiding places. Was this backup ever discovered? Could looters or medieval crusaders have stumbled upon these hoards, melting down the metals and scattering the sacred objects without realizing their origins? The Copper Scroll taunts us with its cold, unyielding surface. It dares us to keep searching, even as it guards its secrets with the same stubborn endurance that kept it intact for 20 centuries. Whether literal or symbolic, its true value might not be in gold, but in the timeless human thrill of the hunt, the unshakable belief that somewhere, just out of reach, a fortune waits. Off the coast of Japan's westernmost island, beneath the turquoise waves of the East China Sea, lies a site that seems ripped straight from the pages of a lost civilization novel. The Yonaguni Monument, a sprawling underwater complex of terraced platforms, towering pillars, and sharp right-angled steps, looks like it could be the ruins of an ancient city swallowed by the ocean. But here's the catch: no one can agree whether it was shaped by human hands or the patient chisel of nature. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura, who has spent decades studying the site, insists this is no accident of geology. The monument's most striking feature, the main terrace, is a flat-topped platform roughly the size of 2 football fields, flanked by what appear to be staircases with unnervingly precise 90-degree angles. Nearby, 2 massive megaliths nicknamed the Twin Pillars rise from the seafloor, their surfaces bearing marks that resemble tool grooves. Even more compelling are the carvings found along the structures, a looping, linear pattern some researchers argue resembles ancient Okinawan script. If human-made, the site could date back over 10,000 years, a relic from a time when sea levels were low enough to expose Yonaguni's now submerged plains. Skeptics, however, point to the power of natural erosion. The monument is carved from sandstone, a rock prone to fracturing along straight plains due to tectonic stress. Geologist Robert Schoch, famous for redating the Sphinx, argues the formations are classic examples of a joint-controlled weathering, where underwater currents exploit natural cracks to sculpt blocky, geometric shapes. The stairs could be parallel bedding planes in the rock, while the terraces might simply be layers of sediment sheared off by millennia of pounding waves. Even the so-called carvings could be scars from coral abrasion or marine borers, yet certain details refuse to fit neatly into either theory. The monument's orientation aligns with magnetic north, a feature rarely seen in natural formations. Nearby, divers have discovered what looks like a carved human face, though erosion makes confirmation nearly impossible, and a circular depression resembling a ritual basin. Most baffling of all is the site's location atop an underwater fault line. If natural, why don't similar formations appear along the rest of the fracture zone? If artificial, how did ancient builders construct something so massive without leaving tools, pottery, or other cultural debris? The debate isn't just academic. If human hands shaped Yonaguni, it would rewrite the history of East Asian civilization, suggesting a sophisticated culture thrived here long before traditionally accepted timelines. Alternatively, if natural, the site stands as a testament to how easily our minds impose order on chaos, seeing cities where there are only stones. For now, the monument keeps its secrets, its staircases leading nowhere, its pillars standing silent in the shifting blue light. Whether a lost city or a geological marvel, one thing is certain: the ocean floor still has stories to tell, and we've only just begun to listen. In a remote mountain cave along the China-Tibet border, a discovery in 1938 sparked one of archaeology's most enduring controversies. A team led by Chinese archaeologist Kai Pu-Te reportedly uncovered hundreds of stone discs, each roughly a foot in diameter, with a hole in the center buried alongside the remains of unusually small skeletons. But the real shock came when researchers claimed these so-called Dropa stones bore microscopic hieroglyphs spiraling along their grooves, telling an incredible story. The discs were 12,000 years old, created by an extraterrestrial race stranded on Earth. The alleged inscriptions, as translated by Russian scientist Dr. Nui in the 1960s, described a spacecraft crashing in the mountains, its alien occupants, the Dropa, struggling to survive among hostile local tribes. The discs supposedly detailed their despair, their attempts to repair their ship, and their eventual integration into human society. If true, this would be the oldest recorded encounter between humans and beings from another world. Proponents point to the disc's unusual composition, said to contain high levels of cobalt and other metals, as potential evidence of advanced technology. But here's where the skepticism takes root. No reputable institution has ever confirmed the stone's existence. The original discs reportedly vanished during World War II chaos, and the only evidence comes from grainy photographs and second-hand accounts. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss the story as an elaborate hoax or a case of mistaken identity, possibly Neolithic by discs, ceremonial jade artifacts common in ancient China, misinterpreted through a sci-fi lens. The skeletons, likely the remains of small-statured Himalayan tribes, not extraterrestrials. Even the central figure, Dr. Nui, raises red flags. No records of a scientist by that name exist in Russian or Chinese academic archives, leading skeptics to argue he was a fictional creation. The hieroglyphs, if they existed at all, may have been natural fissures in the stone or later engravings added to inflate the disk's mystique. Yet the legend persists, fueled by gaps in the official record and the enduring human fascination with ancient astronauts. Could the Dropa stones be a rare case of truth buried under layers of misinformation, or are they a cautionary tale about how easily mythology can masquerade as history? Until the original discs resurface, if they ever existed at all, the stones will remain a tantalizing what-if, hovering at the edge of credibility. They challenge us to ask not just whether we're alone in the universe, but how desperately we want the answer to be no. Rising from a remote field in Elbert County, Georgia, the Georgia Guidestones stood as one of the most bizarre and cryptic monuments of the modern age before they were suddenly reduced to rubble. Erected in 1980, these 20-foot-tall granite slabs bore 10 commandments etched in 8 different languages, ranging from practical advice to ominous warnings. The first directive: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. The last: be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature. But the real mystery wasn't just the messages, it was the utter anonymity of the people behind them. A man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian commissioned the Guidestones, claiming to represent a small group of Americans who wanted to share these principles for a future age of reason. He paid for the project in cash, provided meticulous architectural specifications, and then vanished without a trace. Even the stonemasons who carved the slabs knew nothing about him or his motives. The precision of the monument added to the intrigue, its structure aligned with celestial events, with holes drilled to track the sun's solstices and equinoxes, much like ancient megalithic sites. Was this a spiritual beacon, a blueprint for post-apocalyptic survival, or something more sinister? Conspiracy theories flourished. Some saw the Guidestones as a manifesto by a shadowy global elite, hinting at population control. Others believed they were a warning or even instructions for rebuilding civilization after a coming catastrophe. The monument's emphasis on sustainability and reproduction limits fueled heated debates, turning it into a pilgrimage site for both admirers and protesters. Then, in 2022, the mystery took a violent turn. Explosives detonated at dawn, toppling one of the slabs. Authorities dismantled the rest later, citing safety concerns. But who attacked them and why? No group claimed responsibility, leaving only speculation. Were they targeting the message, the mystery, or the myth itself? What lingers isn't just the debris, it's the chilling relevance of the stone's warnings. In an era of climate crises and resource shortages, their call for balance feels eerily prescient. Yet without their physical presence, the Guidestones have become something even more potent, a ghost of an idea. They force us to ask who gets to dictate humanity's future, and what happens when those instructions are written in stone, only to be erased before we could fully understand them. Whether a blueprint, a prophecy, or a prank, their legacy now exists in the whispers they left behind. Hidden away in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, lies a piece of fabric that has sparked debate, devotion, and scientific scrutiny for centuries: the Shroud of Turin. This 14-foot-long linen cloth bears the faint, haunting image of a man with wounds consistent with crucifixion, his face shadowed with an eerie, almost photographic quality. To millions of believers, it's the burial shroud of Jesus Christ, a divine relic imprinted with his likeness during the resurrection. To skeptics, it's an elaborate medieval forgery, a puzzle that science should have solved by now. But the truth, like the image itself, remains frustratingly out of focus. What makes the shroud so compelling is its uncanny detail. The image isn't painted or dyed, it's a superficial discoloration of the fibers, as if produced by a brief, intense burst of energy. Bloodstains, confirmed by forensic tests to contain hemoglobin, correspond to biblical accounts of the crucifixion, wounds from a crown of thorns, lash marks, a spear puncture in the side. Even more striking, the image behaves like a photographic negative. When reversed, the faint markings resolve into a three-dimensional portrait, complete with depth and contours no medieval artist could have replicated. Science has waged a centuries-long tug of war over the shroud's authenticity. In 1988, radiocarbon dating tests conducted by 3 independent labs placed its origin between 1260 and 1390, squarely in the Middle Ages. Case closed, not quite. Critics point to potential contamination. The sample tested came from a corner of the shroud that might have been repaired after a fire in the 1500s, skewing the results. More recent studies using spectroscopy and microscopic analysis suggest the cloth could be far older, with some researchers proposing it dates back to ancient Judea. Then there's the image itself. No one has successfully replicated its unique properties. Attempts to recreate it using medieval techniques, paints, acids, even rubbing a bas-relief with pigment fail to capture its subtleties. Some theorists propose it was created by a primitive form of radiation or a chemical reaction between burial spices and body sweat, though no definitive explanation holds up under scrutiny. Even the pollen grains found on the shroud add to the mystery. Some species match plants native to Jerusalem, hinting at an origin in the Middle East. The shroud's defenders highlight its historical trail. While its documented history begins in the 1300s, earlier clues might lurk in art and legend. The 6th century image of Edessa, described as a miraculous cloth bearing Christ's face, could be an early reference. Byzantine coins from the 10th century depict a strikingly similar facial outline, as if copying a revered prototype. Could the shroud have been hidden for centuries before resurfacing in medieval Europe? Yet doubts linger. Medieval Europe was rife with religious forgeries, splinters of the true cross, vials of Mary's milk, even multiple heads of John the Baptist. The Catholic Church itself has never officially endorsed the shroud's authenticity, treating it as an object of veneration rather than proof, and the artist's motive. Some suggest it was a devotional aid created to inspire faith, not deceive. Today, the shroud remains frozen in paradox, too intricate to dismiss as a fake, too enigmatic to accept as divine. Its power lies not in answers, but in the questions it forces us to ask about faith, about history, and about the limits of what we think we know. Whether miracle or masterpiece, it endures as a mirror, reflecting back our own longing for connection to the sacred, and the unsettling possibility that some mysteries refuse to be unraveled. High atop a plateau in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, the ruins of Baalbek stand as a monument to both Roman grandeur and an engineering mystery that defies explanation. The site's towering columns and ornate temples, built by the Romans 2,000 years ago, are impressive enough, but it's what lies beneath them that truly boggles the mind. The foundation stones of Baalbek's trilithon, a series of 3 megalithic blocks, each weigh over 800 tons. One nearby stone, left in its quarry, tips the scales at a staggering 1,650 tons, equivalent to 10 fully loaded commercial airplanes. The question isn't just how the Romans moved these behemoths, but why they'd even attempt such a feat when even modern cranes would struggle with that weight. Archaeologists have long credited the Romans with Baalbek's construction, pointing to the intricate carvings and inscriptions that match their imperial style. But those foundation stones tell a different story. The trilithon blocks sit beneath the Roman temple, forming a platform so precisely fitted that not even a razor blade can slide between them, a technique seen in much older, pre-Roman sites like Peru's Sacsayhuaman. This has led some researchers to propose that the Romans built atop an even more ancient structure, repurposing a sacred site whose origins have been lost to time. The logistics of moving these stones are mind-bending. The quarry where the 1,650-ton stone of the pregnant woman still lies is nearly a mile from the temple complex. How did ancient workers transport something heavier than a space shuttle without wheels or pulleys capable of handling the load? Traditional explanations suggest wooden rollers and sledges, but experiments show that at such weights the rollers would splinter like matchsticks. Lebanese folklore offers a more mythical answer. The stones were moved by jinn, supernatural beings summoned by King Solomon himself. Even more intriguing are the tool marks left behind. Some stones show drill holes with spiraling grooves, as if cut by a machine, while others have surfaces so smooth they resemble poured concrete. This level of precision has fueled speculation about lost technologies or forgotten construction methods. Could the builders have used some form of anti-gravity, as fringe theorists suggest, or did they possess knowledge of acoustics or vibration that allowed them to soften stone, as hinted at in other ancient sites? The Romans left detailed records of their engineering triumphs, yet Baalbek's megaliths go unmentioned in their texts. This silence speaks volumes. Whether they inherited the site from an older civilization or achieved a technological marvel they chose not to document, the stones remain a silent challenge to our understanding of the past. They don't just sit there, they loom, daring us to explain the inexplicable. Off the foggy shores of Nova Scotia, beneath the twisted roots of an ancient oak tree, lies a hole that has consumed fortunes, lives, and sanity for over 2 centuries. The Oak Island Money Pit isn't just an excavation site, it's a vortex of obsession. It all began in 1795 when a teenager named Daniel Maginnis noticed a peculiar depression in the ground with a ship's pulley dangling from the oak above. Digging down, he hit wooden platforms every 10 feet, each sealed with layers of coconut fiber and charcoal. By 30 feet, the pit began flooding with seawater, as if the very earth was guarding its secret. And thus began the longest treasure hunt in history, one that would weave together pirate legends, Templar myths, and even whispers of Shakespeare's lost manuscripts. What makes the money pit so maddening is the trail of clues that seem just within reach. Early excavators found a stone slab at 90 feet, inscribed with cryptic symbols that allegedly translated to 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. Then came the artificial beach, a 500-foot-long funnel of sand and gravel designed to flood the pit from underground tunnels whenever someone breached its depths. Modern drilling has pulled up bizarre artifacts, a scrap of parchment with the letters Roman 6 visible, a Spanish copper coin from the 1600s, and even human bone fragments. The deeper explorers go, the more the pit fights back. In 1861, the first recorded death occurred when a boiler engine exploded. In 1965, 4 more died when a shaft collapsed. The curse inscribed on the stone seems real. 7 must die before the treasure can be claimed. Theories about what lies below are as deep as the pit itself. Some swear it's Captain Kidd's pirate hoard, hidden behind ingenious booby traps. Others believe it's the lost treasury of the Knights Templar, who allegedly fled to Nova Scotia after the fall of Acre, burying sacred relics like the Ark of the Covenant. More fringe suggestions include Marie Antoinette's jewels, smuggled out during the French Revolution, or even original manuscripts by Francis Bacon, proving he wrote Shakespeare's plays. The most compelling evidence might be the Nolan Cross, a pattern of boulders and drilled holes that align with constellations, suggesting the pit's builders had advanced astronomical knowledge. Modern technology has only deepened the enigma. Sonar scans reveal caverns beneath the island, possibly man-made. Core samples show traces of gold and silver at staggering depths. Yet every attempt to reach the heart of the pit, now estimated to be over 200 feet down, ends in disaster. Floods, cave-ins, and equipment failures plague operations, as if the island itself resists revelation. The latest explorers, the Lagina brothers of the Curse of Oak Island fame, have spent millions deploying drones, dye tests, and even diving teams into the murky Borehole 10X, where cameras glimpsed what some claim are chests and human remains. But like all before them, they've hit the same wall: water and time. Perhaps the money pit's true treasure isn't gold, but the lesson it teaches. It's a mirror reflecting human desperation, the willingness to spend lifetimes chasing shadows. Every artifact, every clue is a breadcrumb leading not to a chest, but to another question. The pit endures not because it hides riches, but because it guards the greatest prize of all: the unshakable belief that just a little deeper, just one more dig, the mystery will finally be solved. And so the oak's roots tighten around its secret, laughing in the salt wind as another generation arrives, shovels in hand, ready to bargain with the curse. Housed in the National Library of Sweden, the Codex Gigas, better known as the Devil's Bible, looms over visitors like a relic from another world. At 3 feet tall and weighing nearly 165 pounds, it's the largest surviving medieval manuscript, a behemoth of vellum pages bound in wooden covers. But it's not just the size that chills the blood. Legend claims this entire book, containing the complete Latin Bible, historical texts, and medicinal formulas, was written by a single monk in a single night with the help of the devil himself. The story goes that a Benedictine monk, condemned to be walled alive for breaking his vows, made a desperate pact. He'd produce a work glorifying his monastery in one night or face execution. As midnight passed and the task seemed impossible, he prayed not to God but to Lucifer. In exchange for his soul, the devil finished the manuscript, leaving behind his mark, a full-page portrait of the Prince of Darkness himself, grinning from ear to ear amid a kingdom of flames. The eerie detail, this illustration, the most famous in the manuscript, appears on the page directly opposite a depiction of the heavenly city, as if the two realms are locked in eternal confrontation across the parchment. Turning the pages only deepens the mystery. The text is unnaturally uniform, as if penned without pause or error, something nearly impossible given the era's laborious writing process. Paleographers note the handwriting shows no signs of aging, fatigue, or changing tools, leading some to suggest it was the work of multiple scribes copying a single style. Yet no evidence of collaboration exists. Even stranger, the manuscript abruptly switches from black ink to reddish-brown around the middle, fueling speculation that the second half was written under different circumstances. Then there's the curse. Over the centuries, the Codex Gigas left a trail of fire and misfortune. In 1420, it was seized by the Hussites during religious wars, after which the monastery that owned it burned to the ground. Later owners reported nightmares, financial ruin, and untimely deaths. When Swedish troops looted it during the 30 Years' War, their ship nearly sank in a storm, leading soldiers to whisper it was the devil reclaiming his property. Even modern handlers report an uncanny feeling of being watched when studying its pages. Scientific analysis offers some rational explanations. Carbon dating places its creation around the early 1300s, and the ink matches period recipes. The uniform script could simply reflect an exceptionally skilled scribe working under duress. As for the devil's portrait, medieval Bibles often included demonic imagery to warn against sin, though none are quite as unsettling as this one. Yet questions linger. Why include occult texts like the Ars Notoria, a guide to gaining knowledge through demonic pact, in a holy book? And why does the Devil's Page show signs of being touched far more than any other worn down by centuries of fearful hands? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between faith and fear. The Devil's Bible endures not because it provides answers, but because it embodies humanity's oldest struggle, the cost of forbidden knowledge. It's a mirror reflecting our obsession with shortcuts to greatness and the price we might pay to grasp them. The monk's story warns that some doors once opened can never be closed, and some pages once turned leave marks far deeper than ink. In the late summer of 1590, an English ship returned to Roanoke Island with fresh supplies for the fledgling colony, only to find the settlement eerily deserted. The 115 settlers, including women and children, had vanished without a trace. The only clue, the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post and the letters Crow etched into a nearby tree. No bones, no signs of struggle, not even a single discarded spoon. It was as if the entire colony had simply dissolved into the humid Carolina air. This wasn't just a disappearance, it was a historical vanishing act that has taunted researchers for over 4 centuries. The colonists, led by Governor John White, had arrived 3 years earlier with dreams of establishing England's first permanent foothold in the New World. But their timing couldn't have been worse. A devastating drought recorded in tree rings from the period left them struggling to grow crops. Tensions with the local Secotan people flared into violence, cutting off access to vital food sources. When White sailed back to England for reinforcements, war with Spain delayed his return for 3 agonizing years. By the time he made it back, the settlement was a ghost town. The houses had been carefully dismantled, not destroyed, suggesting a planned departure. The cryptic carvings pointed to Croatoan Island, modern-day Hatteras' home to a Native American tribe known to be friendly. But White's search there revealed nothing. Modern archaeology has unearthed tantalizing fragments of the truth. Excavations on Hatteras have turned up a 16th-century English signet ring, pottery fragments, and even a slate writing tablet, artifacts that hint at trade or intermingling. Some researchers believe the colonists, starving and desperate, split into smaller groups and assimilated with local tribes. The Lumbee people of North Carolina, with their distinctive light-eyed members and surnames matching Roanoke settlers like Dial from Dial, claim descent from the lost colonists. Genetic testing in recent years has found European mitochondrial DNA in some Lumbee families, though the results remain controversial. Then there's the darker theory. A decade after the disappearance, Jamestown settlers heard rumors from Powhatan tribesmen of white captives living inland. According to these accounts, a rival chief had slaughtered the colonists to eliminate competition for land. But no mass graves have ever been found, and the story's reliability is shaky at best. Other explanations spiral into the supernatural. Local legends speak of eerie blue lights flickering over the marshes where the colony stood, ghostly remnants, some say, of settlers cursed by ancient forces. Even the name Croatoan itself has been passed for hidden meanings, with some linking it to the Croatans' supposed rituals involving spirit invocation. The most compelling clue emerged in 2020 when archaeologists using ground-penetrating radar detected a hidden patch of earth 50 miles inland, littered with Elizabethan-era artifacts, a rapier hilt broken pottery, and a distinctively English copper alloy ear pick. Could this be Site X, a secret relocation spot hinted at in John White's later writings? Or is it merely another dead end in a puzzle that grows more tangled with each discovery? Roanoke's power lies in its ambiguity. It's a story about the fragility of human ambition, swallowed by a landscape that refused to be tamed. The colonists didn't just vanish, they became part of the land's mythology, a whisper in the wind through the Carolina pine. Every artifact, every DNA test brings us closer to an answer, but the truth remains as elusive as the shadows of those long-gone settlers, still wandering the shore in some collective dream of home. Beneath the deceptively calm surface of Europe's peat bogs lies a macabre time capsule, human bodies so impeccably preserved they still have fingernails, hair, and even the last meal in their stomachs. These bog bodies, dating back over 2,000 years, are more than just archaeological curiosities. They're windows into a brutal, ritualistic past, frozen in the acidic, oxygen-starved embrace of the wetlands. One of the most haunting is the Tollund man, discovered in Denmark in 1950. His face, eerily serene, looks almost as if he's merely sleeping, his leather cap still snug on his head. But the noose around his neck tells a darker story. This was no accidental death. What sets bog bodies apart from other ancient remains is their startling intimacy. The tannins in the peat act as natural preservatives, turning skin to leather and halting decay so completely that forensic pathologists can still determine cause of death. The injuries are disturbingly consistent: strangulation marks, slit throats, blunt force trauma. Many, like the Id girl from the Netherlands, show signs of overkill, multiple violent methods applied as if to ensure death. The positioning of the bodies adds another layer of mystery. Some are pinned down with wooden stakes or heavy stones, as though their communities feared they might rise again. Were these executions punishments or something far more unsettling? Theories about their fate split along grim lines. Many bog bodies show signs of physical deformities or exceptional traits: unusually tall stature, striking red hair, or even disabilities. This has led some scholars to suggest they were chosen as sacrificial offerings, their uniqueness marking them as gifts to gods or spirits. The bogs themselves, liminal spaces between land and water, might have been seen as portals to the divine. Celtic and Germanic tribes believed these wetlands were sacred, places where the veil between worlds was thin. Could these individuals have been volunteers, walking willingly into the muck for the good of their people? Or were they outcasts, criminals, or prisoners of war, dispatched with ritual precision? Clothing and personal effects deepen the enigma. The Grobel man, another Danish bog body, had impeccably manicured hands, no signs of manual labor. His last meal was a gruel made from grains and seeds, some poisonous, hinting at a ceremonial fasting before death. Other bodies wore finely woven cloaks or elaborate hairstyles, suggesting high status even as they met violent ends. The contradictions pile up: reverence and brutality, care and cruelty, all preserved in the bog's embrace. Modern science has peeled back some layers of the mystery. Stomach contents reveal seasonal clues. Berry seeds place some deaths in winter, a time of scarcity and heightened spiritual tension. Isotope analysis traces some victims' origins to distant lands, raising questions about trade, warfare, or long-distance pilgrimages. But the bogs refuse to surrender their deepest secrets. No written records from these Iron Age societies survive, leaving us to interpret silent, leathery faces that will never speak. Perhaps most chilling is what these bodies don't show. Unlike traditional burials, there are no grave goods, no funeral rites, just violent ends and deliberate placement in the waterlogged dark. It's as if their deaths were the entire point, the act itself carrying meaning beyond memory. The bog bodies don't just challenge our understanding of ancient violence, they force us to confront how little we know about the spiritual lives of our ancestors. Their preserved faces seem to ask, is it worse to be forgotten or to be remembered only as a mystery? Standing like silent sentinels on England's Salisbury Plain, the towering Sarsen stones of Stonehenge have long stolen the spotlight, but it's their smaller, unassuming companions that hide the site's most baffling secret. The so-called blue stones, weighing up to 4 tons each, weren't quarried locally. Their origins trace back to the windswept Preseli Hills in Wales, a staggering 150 miles away. This raises a question that's haunted archaeologists for generations. How did Neolithic people, without wheels or pack animals, transport these massive rocks across rivers, mountains, and unforgiving terrain? The logistics alone are mind-bending. Recent studies pinpoint the exact quarries in Wales where the blue stones were extracted around 3400 BC, centuries before the larger Sarsens were erected. Some stones bear marks suggesting they were dragged on wooden sledges, while others might have been moved via a combination of rollers and ropes, but the most controversial theory involves glaciers. A minority of geologists argue that Ice Age movements could have carried the stones partway, leaving them within reach of human transport. Yet this doesn't explain why Neolithic builders would have gone out of their way to collect only these particular rocks from the glacial debris, ignoring countless others. Purpose adds another layer of intrigue. Unlike the Sarsens, which form Stonehenge's iconic outer circle, the blue stones were arranged in inner patterns that seemed deliberately aligned with celestial events. Some researchers believe they acted as a lunar calendar, their positions marking the moon's extreme northern and southern risings over an 18.6-year cycle. But there's a twist. The blue stones aren't just any rocks. They're a mix of spotted dolerite and rhyolite, types of stone long associated with healing in Welsh folklore. Ancient texts speak of Preselles, magic stones, believed to cure ailments when bathed in water. Excavations around Stonehenge have turned up an unusual number of human remains showing signs of severe injury or illness, hinting that the site might have been a pilgrimage destination for the sick and dying. The journey of these stones might hold the key to their significance. Folk memories preserved in Welsh oral tradition describe a mythical leader named Merlin magically transporting the stones from Ireland, a garbled echo perhaps of the real labor involved. Recent experiments show that moving a single blue stone would have required hundreds of people working in unison, creating a communal effort so monumental it would have woven the stones into the cultural fabric. Were they symbols of unity, linking distant communities in a shared spiritual endeavor? Or were they chosen precisely because their epic journey imbued them with power, turning geology into legend? Modern science continues to peel back layers of the mystery. Geochemical analysis reveals that some blue stones were originally part of a massive stone circle in Wales, dismantled and rebuilt at Stonehenge centuries later. This suggests the stones weren't just building materials, they were relics, carrying ancestral memory from one sacred landscape to another. The effort to move them wasn't just engineering, it was an act of devotion, a physical manifestation of belief that defies rationality. Stonehenge's blue stones endure not as silent monoliths but as storytellers. They whisper of a time when distance was no obstacle to faith, when the boundary between the practical and the sacred was blurred. Whether astronomical tools, healing talismans, or vessels of cultural memory, their true meaning might lie not in their function, but in the sheer audacity of their journey, a testament to what humans will carry, literally and metaphorically, to touch the divine. Flourishing along the banks of the Indus River around 2600 BC, the Indus Valley civilization wasn't just advanced for its time, it was a marvel of urban planning that rivaled Egypt and Mesopotamia. With meticulously grid-patterned cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, this society boasted sophisticated drainage systems, standardized weights and measures, and even multi-story brick homes with private wells. But around 1900 BC, something went catastrophically wrong. The thriving metropolis of Mohenjo-Daro, whose name ironically means Mound of the Dead, was abandoned, its streets left to the dust. Unlike other fallen civilizations that left behind chronicles of their collapse, the Indus people left only silence. Their script, etched into thousands of tiny seals, remains undeciphered, turning their downfall into an archaeological whodunit with no written confession. Climate change emerges as a prime suspect. Geological evidence reveals a dramatic shift in monsoon patterns around the time of the collapse, turning lush farmlands into arid wastelands. Core samples from the Arabian Sea show a sudden drop in sediments from the Indus River, suggesting prolonged droughts that would have devastated agriculture. Satellite imagery of ancient riverbeds confirms that the mighty Saraswati River, once the civilization's lifeblood, dried up entirely, but was environmental disaster the whole story. Skeptics point out that other societies adapted to climate shifts. Why not the Indus? Some cities show signs of gradual depopulation, while others appear hastily abandoned as if fleeing an immediate threat. That's where the invasion theory enters. In the early 20th century, archaeologists uncovered dozens of skeletons scattered in Mohenjo-Daro's streets, some with crush injuries as if struck by heavy weapons. This led to speculation about an Aryan invasion, nomadic warriors sweeping down from Central Asia, bringing violence and chaos. The Rig Veda, an ancient Indian text, describes a warlike people conquering walled cities and dark-skinned inhabitants. But modern research complicates this narrative. Genetic studies show no sudden population replacement, and many massacre victims were actually found in disused wells or alleys, possibly victims of floods or disease rather than warfare. The invasion may have been a slow migration, with conflict being just one factor among many. Then there's the disease hypothesis. The Indus cities' advanced water systems, normally a strength, might have become their undoing. Stagnant pools in abandoned neighborhoods could have bred malaria or cholera, while close urban living accelerated outbreaks. Unlike rural societies that could disperse, the Indus people's reliance on dense urban centers may have made them uniquely vulnerable. Some skeletons show signs of chronic anemia, possibly from widespread malaria. Yet without written records, it's impossible to confirm whether pestilence delivered the final blow. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the civilization didn't so much collapse as transform. Recent excavations in present-day Gujarat reveal smaller Indus-style settlements flourishing centuries after the city's fall, suggesting a shift from urban hubs to decentralized villages. The people may have adapted by abandoning unsustainable city life, their culture evolving rather than vanishing. The undeciphered script could hold the key. If those seals ever yield their secrets, they might reveal not a catastrophe but a choice. Until then, the Indus Valley civilization remains a cautionary tale about fragility and resilience, its true story buried not just under layers of silt, but under the weight of our own assumptions about what it means for a society to disappear. Among the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon stand apart, not just for their legendary beauty, but for the unsettling possibility that they may never have existed at all. Greek historians like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus described them in vivid detail. Terraced gardens rising like a lush mountain above the Mesopotamian desert, irrigated by an intricate system of pumps and aqueducts, with exotic plants spilling over towering stone arches. According to legend, King Nebuchadnezzar built them in the 6th century BC to ease his homesick wife's longing for the green hills of her homeland. Yet despite centuries of searching, not a single brick, inscription, or definitive trace of the gardens has ever been found in Babylon. How could something so magnificent leave no physical footprint? The mystery deepens when you consider the sources. Every account of the gardens comes from Greek and Roman writers, none from Babylon itself. Not a single cuneiform tablet from Nebuchadnezzar's reign mentions these gardens, even though the king meticulously documented other construction projects like the Ishtar Gate. This glaring omission has led some scholars to propose that the gardens were purely a poetic invention, a symbol of Eastern exoticism conjured by Greek travelers to impress audiences back home. Others argue they might have been real but located elsewhere. A recent theory points to Nineveh, where Assyrian King Sennacherib left records of a lavish palace without rival, with an elaborate water-lifting system. Details that eerily match descriptions of the gardens. Then there's the practical challenge. Babylon's arid climate and flat landscape make the idea of hanging gardens seem almost fantastical. How could enough water be lifted to sustain towering vegetation without modern technology? Ancient texts claim a complex screw pump system was used, but no such machinery has been discovered. Some researchers suggest the gardens might have been a feat of optical illusion, terraces built into a ziggurat sides, appearing to hang when viewed from below, their greenery exaggerated by travelers' tales. The lack of archaeological evidence isn't just frustrating, it's suspicious. Babylon has been extensively excavated, with even mundane household items preserved in the dry soil. If the gardens existed, why haven't their foundations or irrigation channels turned up? One provocative explanation is that they were destroyed completely, perhaps by an earthquake or erosion, leaving no trace. Another is that they're still buried beneath the Euphrates' shifting course, waiting for a lucky shovel to uncover them. What's most fascinating isn't whether the gardens were real, but why we want them to be. They represent humanity's longing to conquer nature, to create paradise in the most unlikely places. Even if they were pure myth, their legacy has shaped art, literature, and our imagination for millennia. The Hanging Gardens endure not as stones and soil, but as a testament to the power of stories, proof that some wonders thrive best in the space between history and dream. Discovered in 1908 within the ruins of the Minoan Palace of Phaistos on Crete, the Phaistos disc is one of archaeology's most tantalizing puzzles. A small, fired clay disc, barely 6 inches in diameter, covered on both sides with a spiral of 45 distinct symbols stamped into the clay. From spirals and running figures to birds and shields, these symbols form 241 individual impressions, arranged in what appears to be deliberate groupings. But here's the catch: over a century after its discovery, no one has definitively deciphered its message, and no other artifact like it has ever been found. The disc's isolation in the archaeological record makes it uniquely baffling. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, which appear across countless artifacts, the Phaistos disc symbols are a one-off. Even more perplexing, the symbols weren't carved or painted. They were stamped into the clay with individual seals, suggesting a level of technological sophistication previously unknown for its time, around 1800 BC. This has led some researchers to propose the disc might be an early example of movable type, predating Gutenberg's printing press by over 3,000 years. But if that's true, why haven't other stamped texts surfaced? Was this a prototype abandoned for reasons lost to time, or is it evidence of a secretive, elite communication system? Decipherment attempts have veered from the scholarly to the speculative. Some linguists argue the symbols represent a syllabic or logographic script, possibly linked to Linear A, the still undeciphered writing system of the Minoan. Others see connections to ancient Anatolian or even Proto-Greek languages. One controversial theory suggests the disc records a religious hymn or incantation, with the spiral symbolizing a labyrinthine journey. Computer algorithms have been deployed to analyze symbol frequency and grouping patterns, yet no proposed translation has gained widespread acceptance. Then there are the fringe interpretations. Certain symbols, like a helmeted head or a captive bound with ropes, have fueled speculation about military campaigns or mythological narratives. More outlandish theories propose the disc as an ancient board game, an astronomical calendar, or even extraterrestrial communication. The lack of a Rosetta Stone equivalent, a bilingual text to cross-reference, means every attempt rests on shaky ground. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the disc wasn't meant to be read at all. Could it have been a ceremonial object, its symbols serving a ritual purpose beyond literal meaning? Or was it a failed experiment in writing, a road not taken in the history of language? Until another example surfaces, the Phaistos disc remains a solitary enigma, its symbols whispering just loud enough to remind us how much of the past is still written in a code we can't crack. From the hidden chambers of the Great Pyramid to the eerie precision of the Nazca Lines, from the Antikythera Mechanism's impossible sophistication to the uncanny preservation of the Tarim mummies, we've journeyed through 30 of history's most bewildering riddles. These aren't just footnotes in textbooks, they're glaring gaps in our collective knowledge, moments where the past throws up its hands and says, "Figure this out." Each mystery we've explored, whether it's the purpose of Sacsayhuaman's earthquake-defying walls, the origins of the Voynich Manuscript's unreadable script, or the true fate of the Roanoke colonists, serves as a humbling reminder. For all our technological advancements, ancient civilizations still hold secrets we may never fully unravel. What makes these enigmas so captivating isn't just their age, it's how they force us to question the very narrative of human progress. The Baghdad battery suggests we might have underestimated ancient understanding of electricity. Göbekli Tepe's towering pillars rewrite the timeline of civilization itself. even the Plain of Jars with its silent stone sentinels, whispers of rituals and beliefs lost to time. These puzzles aren't locked away in distant history. They're mirrors reflecting how much we still don't know about the ingenuity, spirituality, and resilience of those who came before us. Now, we want to hear your thoughts. Which of these mysteries haunts your imagination the most? Is it the cosmic precision of the Karnak stones, the unsettling potential of the dendrolites, or the tantalizing treasure map of the Copper Scroll? Drop your picks in the comments below along with any theories you've heard that we didn't cover. History isn't a monologue, it's a conversation, and every perspective adds another piece to the puzzle. If you're as obsessed with these enigmas as we are, don't let the journey end here. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We've got more deep dives into the past coming your way, from vanished civilizations to artifacts that defy explanation. Because the truth is, these 30 mysteries are just the beginning. For every question we've explored, there are 100 more waiting in the shadows of history, daring us to keep searching, keep questioning, and stay curious. The past isn't done talking. Are you still listening?